On this video, we will look into dimensioning and how to add dimensions to technical drawings. All dimensioning goes into orthographic projection views, and that's the main reason we are creating these drawing views. And again, it's very difficult to show all the details in the pictorial form, like an isometric view or perspective view. So what we generate these multi-view drawings for that purpose. The number of the views, again, depends on how complicated the part is. In this case, for this example, 2 views are sufficient. So that's what we have, front view and top view. So again, the main important part on dimensioning is the placement of dimensioning, how we can follow the ANSI standards. Again, I would recommend you to look into the dimensioning rules, which is described on this chapter in your textbook, and as well as the information sheet that I have posted. So before we start dimensioning, and this, I would like to place all the center lines and center marks. To do that, all these dimensioning tools are available under the Annotate. As you see, right now my Annotate tab is highlighted, and I will select center mark option here. As you can see, the little plus sign, and I point simply to this arc, and that gives me the center line or center mark. And for the front view, it's very small, but still we can do that. We can show, and for this front view, what we need to place a center line in between these two. So Inventor provides us for us very easily. You can just pick this center line bisector, which is called, and then select 2 lines, and that places between those. You wonder why it didn't show the line type correctly, because of the size. So we need to make some adjustment for those. We come back to that. And I'm going to select another one on this one, because everywhere that you have these holes, you need to show those center lines. So you notice that this center line showed properly, but these two are still solid lines because of the scale of this center lines. Okay, so once we have those, and there is also one small one in the middle, so we can place one center mark for that as well. Okay, now once we have those, I'm going to go start dimensioning. Now, this type of rounded object, if you go back to the dimension rules, recommend that we don't show from end to end, because again, you need to think about the manufacturing point of view, not necessarily dimensioning the geometry. So what we are trying to do here, show the location of these holes, which automatically goes to the center, And this one is, I need to select again, probably to get this one. Okay, I'm going to press escape key. There's something happened here. I'm going to repeat this operation again. I pick the center of the circle to the center of the circle, and then this is the important part. Where do I place? This is now user's choice. So gives me the distance exactly right, which is we have created with the 2.5 inches in this case. But where do we place that? What's the best place? Well, I have a lot of choices, especially in the multi-view drawings. I have choice here, I have here, I have inside, and so, and also we have how far do we want to go there? So try to apply some of those rules again. What we call proximity rule. If they recommend about 1/2 inch or 12 millimeters from the first object lines. You just left click on that and say OK. All right, so we have placed that. So we know the location of that. Now we need to know the size of these holes as well. So I'm going to point to this just on the circumference of the one circle dimension, maybe a larger view here so we can select correctly. And then notice that automatically diameter symbol. Now again, you don't want to place them in the vertical position or horizontal. So what we call mechanics of the dimensioning. So try to do that your best you can. Place them somewhere, again, not too far, not too close. So by practice, you will get that used to it, where exactly location would be proper. And I have another circle on this side. So normally we don't dimension that more than once because they are the same size. So what we need to do now, we need to edit this dimension saying that these two are the same. By double click on this dialog box opens. Before this bracket, I will type 2x, again, capital X, and spacebar. So that means that we have two places, that X is the symbol for indicating that these are the same, two the same. So in the older technique was, they called them two holes, and they have adapted to the symbols rather than words. Now we have a lot of symbolic representation of the dimension. So now we have 2x, two places, diameter symbol 0.5. So we don't need to dimension this. However, this one is different. I'm going to go back to the dimension, point to the circumference. And again, I'm trying to avoid inside dimensioning as much as possible to go to outside. Again, notice the angle of the leader. And now this shows R.12. This, because of the nature of the shape, this was rounded shape. Remember that? We have on the top this little hole here. Because it's a rounded face, when you project it, the software doesn't recognize this was a circle. So it thinks that this is an arc, which is not arc. So we need to change that type of dimensioning before you left click, right click, and say option. I'm sorry, under the dimension type, rather. So right click under dimension type, diameter. So that switches to the diameter, then left click. This is then place somewhere. That's pretty good location there. Okay. Now we have size of these holes. We do have location on one side, and how about other side? So the best technique would be using the baseline type dimensions, selecting the first circle and second circle, giving the overall center to center. Again, spacing, notice approximately 10 millimeters from the first dimension, and then okay. And again, we chose this one because between the views they share. Remember, these are the same part, which represents from the front and the top. And so the alignment is important. We cannot just move this to somewhere else without explanation where it's coming from. So, and also these holes are aligned with each other. So we don't dimension, also one of the rules refers to don't dimension the hidden lines, and the best place that describes the object in this case, that would be the case. So on the top view, we need some other information. One is, oh, by the way, I have another one on top view. Not to forget that, arc. Again, this one is the best to show from the center. So we know exactly where the center of arc is. So before left click, again, right click, say option, arrow inside. So this is a better way to show this. Shows R, again, R is correct for radius, 2x. Again, two places, because we have another one on this side. So 2x R1. Again, notice that arcs are always by radius, circles or holes by diameter. Now back to the front view, we need to add some more dimension. Notice the color of my dimensions became red. You wonder why? Because I have changed my template, so I don't have to do this each time. So your template may show black. I'm going to show you how to change that. So I will finish this dimension. There's one here we can show one, because we need to show that. And then we need to show this arc as well. Okay, this one, again, I'm going to go to options, arrow inside, because this way shows where the center of the arc is. However, I forgot to place the center mark here. Probably I need to do that as well. Okay, that's something shows. And I have double line here. Probably I can individually modify that by bringing down here. So so it doesn't cover the other center line. So I just need to show the little mark here. Again, you can always adjust these by highlight them and drag them. Takes a little work and practice on that one. So that's thickness is shown, radius is shown, and pretty much completes our assignment, except that we need to show one more dimension here by showing the between these two, and this is symmetrical, but to clarify this, the best way would be probably add one more dimension. This would not be, again, we don't repeat extra dimensions, but sometimes it's necessary to clarify that. So if I know this one is 2.5, this is 2, other one is also is obvious, we don't have to dimension that. That would be another reference if we do, which this completes your dimensions. Now back to the color that I have changed for dimension. Also, I'm going to go change the color for center lines and show you how to change the color, and also the settings for this center line, which doesn't appear as a center line. Okay, let's go back to tool. I'm sorry, manage. Under the manage tab, start editor, and select the layer. See, normally you have these layers. All these are under the layers. I have already changed dimension. As you see, dimension shows red. By default is black. By default, all of them are black color. So we're going to go select the center mark. Select the different color for that. We use in the class, we use this magenta. And then we have another one, center line, also the same color. And we have those. Now, I'm going to save and close. As you notice, all the center lines became that color, pink or magenta. That concludes this dimension, except that one more thing we need to change is these. So the best way to change those, right click on this, as you see I'm highlighting, right click and edit center mark style. This opens up this menu, and here the best way would be that divide all these variables in half. One is under the A, which again, this illustration shows you what is A, what's B, what's C, and change the gap, which is B divided by 2. And C doesn't play that much role on that. We're going to leave that C the same and change the D also divided by 2. Normally, if you cut this in half, that should adjust for that size and show. If it doesn't, we can further divide by further down. But normally, most of the time works out, unless it's too small. In this case, it looks good, and you notice that this now looks center line. So just again, idea is in dimensioning, but just in summary, what we need to do, decide location, which is the important part, and